It's your host, Arthur Chill, Fed, let me straighten out this camera a little bit. You did. Um, Pull up my chair some. What we getting into tonight, man, you know what I mean? It's a little history, cause it's good to know where you're from, what you got going on, and your true right to royalty, you know. So we're gonna read about Nubia, Kush, and Axum. Ancient civilizations that paved the way for us here today. And let me just go into it a little bit. And these kingdoms that was south of Egypt. So here it goes. It's saying there were, and I'm reading, you know what I'm saying, a little world history, you did. So it says, just south of Egypt, three other ancient kingdoms developed, though none were as wealthy as they would say to Egypt, because Egypt was at its peak. But however, each prospered through regional trade along the Nile River and carried interregional trade across the Red Sea. And we're going to start with Nubia right here. So Nubia emerged in the Upper Nile Valley around 3500 BCE. Egyptian traders went to Nubia in search of gold. They went to Nubia in search of gold, ivory, incense, cattle, animal skins, and slaves. So, you see it right there. That's what the Egyptians went there in search of. And slaves. Says Nubians were recruited to serve as mercenaries in Egyptian forces. So you got to realize the word slaves, they wasn't employed as workers in the Egyptian army. Okay? So Nubians were recruited to serve as mercenaries in the Egyptian forces. Nubia was basically an agricultural country growing most of its same crops and raising the same domesticated animals as Egypt. Unlike Egypt, though, the floodplain was not as wide. Therefore, Nubian farmers had to make more use of irrigation networks to water their fields. The Nubians were heavily influenced by Egyptian culture, in part because of their close proximity to the land of the pharaohs. For example, the Nubians built Egyptian-type pyramid palaces. They also worshiped some of the Egyptian gods and adopted Egyptian burial practices. However, the Nubians retained some of their gods as well. Likewise, the Nubians used Egyptian hieroglyphics in writing. So the Nubians retained some of their own gods, and they also used some of the Egyptians' hieroglyphics. Could these have been the Hebrew peoples? You never know. Okay. Now, it says, likewise, the Nubians used Egyptian hieroglyphics in writing, but they also developed their own script, which was alphabetic. Nubia lasted for nearly 1,000 years before falling into decline, only to re-emerge as the kingdom of Kush around 2500 BCE. So the Nubian kingdom lasted for about 1,000 years, they say, 3500 BCE. You see it right there. That's the source. And so now it's saying now it transitioning from Nubia to Kush. So let's read about Kush real fast. It say Kush remained independent and dependent also on Egypt, only establishing some political and cultural independence by about 1000 BCE. 1000 BCE. You see it right there. Okay. Let's say Kush even conquered Egypt briefly. They even conquered Egypt, Kush did, briefly before they themselves were overthrown by the Assyrians in 663 BCE. Even without control of Egypt, however, Kush became an important kingdom, economically trading with the Roman Empire, India, and Arabia. Kushites exported slaves as well as ivory, gold, and cattle. The Kushites mined iron ore from which they made tools and weapons and furnaces fueled by timber. The city Metro was a particularly important trade center, or some of them call it Meroe. Kush enjoyed its greatest power from about 300 BCE to 100 CE. Afterward, their power influence declined partly because of deforestation. Kushites cut down trees in order to make the charcoal used in smelting iron. In the 340 CE, Kush was conquered by the civilization of Axum. So we'll read about Axum now. Axum. The civilization of Axum was founded on the plateau of present-day Ethiopia in the 1st century CE. Its capital city was called Axum. The state had agricultural economy with farmers using plows to cultivate wheat, barley, millet. Axumites. Now the Axumites also established a successful trading colony on the Red Sea called Adulis. Now, Adulis, where traders sold products from the African interior. Let me put this down. Where traders sold African interiors such as hides, ivory, and slaves. Now, you know, all three of these kingdoms had something to do with slaves. Okay, in exchange for money or products from India, Arabia, and Roman Empire, Adulis and Axum as a whole grew rich by taxing foreign trade and by requiring conquered lands to pay tribute. Okay, because of their trading connections with the Roman Empire, some Axum people converted to Christianity. The religion's popularity continued to increase, helping to create a more cohesive society. In 300 CE, Christianity was decreed the official religion of Axum by the king Izana. Right there. See it right there? Let me show you. By the king Izana. Okay. So it says Christianity was decreed official religion of Axum by then King Izana. The Axumites defeated the Kushites in Meroe in 340s CE. In the 500s, Axum expanded its territories to include modern Yemen on the Arabian Peninsula. From Arabia, Axum borrowed a script for its written language. It say, from Arabia, Axum borrowed a script from its written language. Axum began declining around 600 CE, but it remained strong enough to counter efforts to convert Axumites to Islam in the 7th and 8th century. Christianity stayed the dominant religion in the area as it is in Ethiopia today. Just give you a little, insights, on some of the civilizations you did with Nubia, Kush, and Axum. And that's Fire Knowledge Decoded. That was from one of the world history advanced placement tests. And that's some research out of that book. I think it was 2018 as well, right here. World History Edition 2018. Just giving you a little, advanced condensed consolidation of some of the things that was going on with our people, as well as trade, as well as slavery, as well as we was employed to serve as mercenaries for our skills in the Egyptian army as well, So check that out. Do your research, do your due diligence, Fire Knowledge Decoded. Once again, you did. I'm gonna always give you something fresh, fire out of the kitchen. For sure. We out of here, man.